Okay, I welcome you all with love. We're doing Parsha VayYiKra, and really the book VayYiKra or Leviticus. Okay, and I always start the Parshas with a prayer of merging the heavens and the earth. L'shem yikud kedusha brihu ushinate bi'ilu or imilaye shemuke belovke b'yudah shalom b'shem k'Israel kolam amen. So take a moment to merge the heavens and earth and the heart and the mind within ourselves. When we do that, we can best understand the teachings of the Torah. I'm actually going to start with a little bit from Pakudi, which is the previous Parsha, last week's Parsha. And Pakudi means accountings. And as I look at this whole picture, this will help us better understand VayYiKra, which is any called, okay, or the calling. So it's taught in Pakudi that we have a continual accounting. And we don't just have accountings for what we didn't do right, okay, that's one. But we also have accountings for what we didn't do with full intensity and love and consciousness of the divine. And there is an accounting of each person has a certain mission and gift that we give in the world. And those missions and gifts also happen at different phases of our life. So, in this sense, the accounting had to do with Moshe giving a certain accounting. But it's true for all of us. And there's a message here that if we don't follow the calling of what we're supposed to do, then there is a kind of a certain karmic result. And that's why the accounting is so important, and it even includes previous lifetimes. So it is a balancing, medad keneged medad, measure for measure. The key that I want to get to in the accountings is we are all given our different missions in different ways. I knew at the age of 4 that I wanted to be a doctor. I didn't know what that meant. Nobody in my family understood. You know, like our lineage back to the 1850s was bakers in the town of Białystok, you know, in Poland, Russia. It's like, okay, what kind of calling is this? And then at the age of 8, I had a vision of men in white. It's like, what is this? But there was a message. And later I see that those people who appeared in the vision, including Abraham, were a clue. And that's really what I want to get to. We get clues. We get clues what's going on in our life. And another one was Sababa of Shirdi. And the other one that appeared, and they've appeared several times, was Crazy Horse, the great Native American warrior and leader. What's that about? Well, I'm getting a message, right? What is this? You're 8 years old. Nobody knows what you're talking about. And it's like, don't talk to anybody, but you know it within yourself. Okay? And the accountings, in essence, are for us to be responsible for the hints we've gotten. And I'm going to say the small, silent voice of God in our life. Are we really hearing it? And we'll see Moses is given that voice. It's supposed to be loud and thundering, but only he hears it. wow, what's that about? So accountings has to do with that part of ourselves, that hearing the small silent voice. People come in and we have different missions. I know, for example, I went to Israel after the 1967 war, and there was a sense of some kind of mission, not clear. And I've been teaching there since 2004. Again, not clear exactly what is this calling. Some people come in and know that they are soulmates. Soulmates come from different ages, from lands far away, but there's some calling. We've got to trust that. We don't know where that goes. Got to trust that mission. As far as I'm concerned, my mission personally in the calling, because this is pretty personal when we talk about it, that really if we're going to understand the Torah, we've got to understand it's a personal statement. Hasn't been clear, but I met with the Bialy Rabbi at some point, since I'm from Bialystok, or my father was. And he actually said, your calling isn't just in Israel, it's for the whole world. Oh, okay, so that's a hint. It's a broader calling. And I think that's what we need to do that. Now, the message that we have, there's a famous Hasidic rabbi, Reb Zusha. People came upon him and he was crying. So, why are you crying, Reb Zusha? He said, well, I know I don't have to be like Moshe, or I know I don't need to be like Rabbi Hillel. The real question, and the reason I'm crying, is I hear God asking, are you being Zusha? Our being, our calling. That's the key question. Sometimes it doesn't come just when we think it is. Sometimes we're getting a message, and it may be years in advance that this happens. God usually gives us some kind of hint that this is going on. It's like, what's going on? I don't know what's going on, but we're getting this hint. And we're brought into a world to work with certain people, to do certain missions. Not clear. I'll give you another example. Because the teaching here is something bigger. I was in India, and my 5-year-old daughter, every time we passed a certain place, would start crying. So we can't figure this out. What is going on here? So this went on for a few weeks. Finally, we went to Muktananda, and he said, there's a demon in the adjoining field, and that's disturbing your daughter. Oh, okay. So what to do? Well, what you're going to do is you're going to go out into the field and dispel that demon. And I'm thinking, what? I'm going out in the field to dispel a demon? Yeah, and here's what you have to do. Now, that was a directive, and that gets us into VayYiKra, and he called, right? So suddenly, I'm out in this field, and there's all these malaria mosquitoes, and I'm covered up, and I'm doing this ceremony dealing with this demon. It's like, wow. That was a lot, okay? But the point is, that was the beginning of a whole calling for me that I've been performing in the world for the last 40 years. It's like, so sometimes the callings just fall on our heads, okay? The question is, are we going to listen? That's the big thing. See, the voice was very loud, but only Moshe could hear the voice, okay? And we have to to follow that calling. That destiny is there, again. From soulmates to dharmas, there's an accounting. And we are held accountable for following our mission in the world. So we have a general mission to know God, okay, but we have our own unique mission. That's what Rab Zusha was crying about. Can I really be Zusha? Can I be what I'm meant to be? And I mentioned the soulmate issue. I mentioned all the different dharmas that aren't clear. I mentioned sometimes we get a hint and it doesn't show up for years later. And that's the point that I'm making here for myself. I still don't know exactly what the whole calling is in a certain way or who's going to be with that calling. But I know what I took in 2008 as an initiation in Israel, 372 hours in the desert without food and water, and the vision of Abraham showed up and imbued me with a certain amount of power and understanding, but not clear. I just knew I needed to go out in the desert. I needed to follow that. I know that my friend Kevin Ryson came to me at one point and he was doing some work with kind of past lives and channelings. He said, you look just like a certain Native American who turns out to be the first Native American Western trained doctor who actually lived in Amherst at one point. It's like, well, that's you. Let's play it out and explore it. And also, he was the doctor available at Wounded Knee. And he actually had met Crazy Horse. It's like, whoa, I know I have a calling which I have to fulfill here is to release the souls that were killed at Wounded Knee. I know that. I know I need to do it in the month of Elul, and I'm knowing before I move on, I have to clear that. Now, that's what I mean by an accounting. So I got to do this, okay? In terms of releasing souls, another calling. We did this at different concentration camps, including Auschwitz, releasing the souls, and I had this calling, and one of my, an old acquaintance from Santa Rosa was there who actually escaped from Auschwitz, okay? And he had a calling to somehow connect with his mother and sister who died in Auschwitz, okay? This is 1989, okay? Long after Auschwitz was active. And I meet up with him. He's doing his calling, right? And he's not having much luck going out to Auschwitz. I go out there. I have a calling, obviously, to release the souls. I have the training to do it. And he joins. And then what happens? He sees his mother and his sister going up because we release, I think, millions of souls. It's like, whoa, calling, mystery. So we live in kind of a mystery here. That's what I'm kind of saying. So accounting is, can we follow that? And I repeated it, but people are meant to be soulmates. It's a timing. We don't know that. Certain people are meant to do certain things. I don't know I was going to go to Auschwitz. I don't know that later I hear about Blood Island where many Native Americans were massacred, and I'm again have to go and do releasing the souls there with different people. This was more recently. It's like, but we have hints. We have clarity. And we have to respect that. That's the key. And we have to search for it. What's going on in today's world is people aren't really seeing that they have a calling. And they're not willing, and if they do, they're not necessarily willing to follow it. So we have actions that we're not supposed to have done that need to be burned up. We have actions we do halfway. And then we have what I'm talking about, the accounting, which is, can we follow our missions? We're brought in the world, we're brought in the world to work with certain people, we're brought in the world to burn up, old karmas. I mentioned again the soulmate. It's very mysterious for people, but it needs to be fulfilled. Now, that takes us to VayYiKra, because we have the accountings, because we're held accountable for following what God's telling us to do. Okay, so Moshe, VayYiKra, the calling. He's told to take down the whole tabernacle for 7 days. Okay, and it's only on the 8th day, which is the first day of Nisan, 8 being of extremely important number, because it takes us out of worldly cycle into eternal cycle, where he then does the final, making it more permanent, and then initiates the other Aaronic priests. Not clear what this is all about, but 7 days is interesting, because it said doesn't matter how many times a Zadok falls, at least as long as they get up one more time. And this is somewhat related to the 7 days. So it's like, whoa, this is really interesting. So Moses is playing this out, and he has obviously the calling to do what he's supposed to do, put it down for 7 days, initiating it on the 8th day into the kind of more eternal understanding. And it said, a wise person sees what's born. So the first day of Nisan is a time of birth. And it comes out of emptiness. Birth comes out of the nothing. A wise person sees it and sees the implications of where that birth takes us. That's deep wisdom. Now in VayYiKra, more is going on, because VayYiKra is basically also saying there's a lot of sacrifice. So sacrifice gets translated in my world as devotion and service to God. Okay, that's the real sacrifice, where we're not sacrificing physical animals. I mean, some people may think that that's what we're talking about. No, we're sacrificing the animal of the ego. We're sacrificing our connection to time and space, because to really follow the mystical following of the calling, we have to be free from time and space. We just have to know the calling and fulfill it the best we can. So Moshe is, basically that's what Moshe is doing here. He's initiating the people, but he sees a bigger picture, and he hears the voice. And that voice is very loud, but it's the small, silent whisper. And that's key for us to be able to hear. We've got to be able to hear that whisper so we can follow the calling. And so, as Zusha was talking about, at the end of his life, when it's time to do the accountings, we can say, I was Zusha. We can say, I came into my life to do certain things, and I did them. We can say, I became mysterious, I don't understand, soulmate, following that even though it seems like upside down and convoluted, but I'm going to follow it. That's the beauty of the eighth day, is it takes us beyond time and space. And so the message that we're hearing in this Parsha, and really the sequence of the two Parshas, is there is an accounting and there's a calling. And through our sacrifice, through our meditation, through our prayer, it's not like God needs our prayers. We need our prayers. What do our prayers do? Our meditation, our prayers, our service open up the light of God to ourselves. And this is the first Parsha where we really got that God, Hashem, is that source of light. And our job is to do the sacrifice, the service, and the prayer, and the meditation that we can experience the source of life. And the sacrifice is the devotion and the hard work that it takes to get there. That's really key. And so that's the kind of the bigger picture to this amazing Parsha of the calling. And the blessing again is, do we have the courage? Do we have the spiritual strength to follow our calling? To gift to the world what we're meant to gift, no matter how awkward it is, no matter if our timing isn't what we think it is, but to persevere, as Moshe obviously did over time. And can we continually, now not just at the end of our lives, but at every phase of our life, account for our actions that we did or didn't do. My choice, the way I live, is I'm going to follow those callings. I don't care what has to happen. If I'm out in the field fighting a demon, fine. If I'm releasing, trapped souls, fine. If whatever it is, I'm going to do it no matter what. That's my choice. I'm going to listen to that small, silent voice and make it happen. Now, one of the good things is the great teachings, besides the wisdom to know what's being birthed in the moment, is to know that the accomplishment is not the point. The intent is what the point is. So even though not everything gets accomplished, but we try as hard as we can in that mystical reality, the intent to follow that small silent voice of God, that for some of us is like yelling at us, okay, is the most important thing. So may everyone be blessed that we can hear that small silent voice. May everybody be blessed with the power of VayYiKra to hear the calling and more so follow the calling, no matter how strange or difficult it may appear. Shalom, shalom, shalom.